The emergency session of the Galactic Trade Federation convened in the Crystal Amphitheater of Nexus Prime, the largest trading station in known space. Representatives from 47 different species filled the curved seating arrangement, their various forms creating a kaleidoscope of alien biology. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the different atmospheric requirements, creating a slight haze that caught the artificial starlight streaming through the transparent dome above. Chancellor Vorthog of the Draconian Empire called the session to order with a thunderous bang of his ceremonial hammer. His reptilian features were set in their usual expression of barely contained aggression, red eyes scanning the assembled crowd with predatory interest. The Draconians had been the dominant military force in the galaxy for over 2 millennia, and Vorthog never let anyone forget it. "This emergency session has been called," Vorthog announced, his voice carrying to the chamber's acoustics, to address the concerning reports about a new species that has entered our space, the humans. A collective murmur rippled through the assembly. Most representatives had heard whispers about these newcomers, but few had encountered them directly. The humans had appeared seemingly from nowhere, their primitive-looking vessels making contact with Outer Rim traders and explorers. They claimed to come from a small world called Earth, located in what most considered an unremarkable spiral arm of the galaxy. Ambassador Thalen of the Keprian Coalition stood slowly, her translucent form shimmering with nervous energy. The Keplerians were known throughout the galaxy as peaceful traders and explorers, valued for their extensive knowledge of spacefaring cultures. When Thalen spoke, her voice carried the weight of genuine concern. "Honorable Chancellor," she began, her melodic voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "I must share troubling observations about these human vessels. They are not what they appear to be." Minister Zedgeth of the Centauri hegemony let out a barking laugh that echoed through the chamber. His bulbous form jiggled with amusement as he activated his speaking platform. Thalen has grown paranoid from too much time in deep space. "These humans are primitive scavengers with ships that look like they were assembled from scrap metal. What possible threat could they pose?" Admiral Corax of the Federation Navy leaned forward in his seat, his cybernetic implants glowing blue against his pale skin. "I have reviewed the intelligence reports on human technology. Their vessels use chemical propulsion for orbital maneuvering and primitive fusion drives for interstellar travel. They have no energy shields, no gravity manipulation, and their weapons are projectile-based. They are centuries behind our current technology." Thalen's form flickered with agitation. "You do not understand. I have personally observed human vessels during trade negotiations. Their ships, they change. They come apart and reform. They adapt to situations in ways that should not be possible with their apparent technology level." The chamber erupted in laughter. Several representatives activated their translation matrices to share the joke with their companions. The idea that primitive human vessels could pose any kind of threat was apparently the most amusing thing many of them had heard in years. Trade Commissioner Helix of the Quantum Consortium wiped the optical sensors that served as her eyes. "Thalen, you must have observed maintenance operations or perhaps emergency repairs. All vessels require reconfiguration for different purposes. There is nothing mysterious about this." "No," Thalen insisted, her voice growing stronger. "What I witnessed was not maintenance. These ships separated into dozens of individual units, each capable of independent operation. They move like a living organism, not like mechanical vessels. And the crew, they were not military personnel. They were families, children, elderly individuals, entire communities living within those vessels." Chancellor Vorthog's expression grew more serious. "Are you suggesting these humans use civilian populations as shields? That would be a violation of galactic warfare conventions." "I am suggesting," Thalen replied carefully, "that these humans do not separate their military and civilian populations the way we do. Their ships are not just vessels of war or trade. They are mobile homes carrying everything these beings need to survive in space." Senator Quillax of the Andorian Republic activated his platform with a dismissive gesture. His insectoid features clicked with annoyance. This is exactly the kind of inefficient thinking that holds primitive species back. Military vessels should be optimized for combat. Civilian vessels should be optimized for transport or habitation. Mixing purposes creates weakness. Does it? Thalen asked quietly. Or does it create something we have never encountered before? Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication system activated with an urgent tone. The holographic display at the center of the amphitheater lit up with the image of Station Commander Fricks, his tentacles writhing with obvious stress. Chancellor Vorthog, Fricks announced, "We have a situation developing in Sector 7. A human vessel has entered Federation space and is requesting permission to transit to the Outer Rim territories." Vorthog's eyes narrowed. "What type of vessel?" "It appears to be a cargo hauler, sir. Designation, Phoenix Dawn. The ship is unusual. It's massive, easily 3 times the size of our largest freight carriers, but the energy signature suggests it's carrying far more than just cargo." The display changed to show the exterior of a human vessel. A collective gasp went up from the assembly. The Phoenix Dawn was indeed massive, a sprawling collection of interconnected modules that stretched nearly 2 kilometers from end to end. Unlike the sleek, purposeful designs of Federation vessels, the human ship looked like a small city had been equipped with engines and launched into space. Admiral Corex studied the image with professional interest. The design is inefficient. Too much surface area exposed to space, vulnerable to attack from multiple vectors. And those external modules, they would be the first targets in any combat situation. "It's not a warship," Thalen said quietly. "It's a home." Commissioner Helix zoomed in on different sections of the human vessel. "I can identify what appear to be agricultural bays, residential areas, manufacturing facilities, and are those recreational spaces? This vessel is carrying an entire community." "Exactly," Thalen replied. "And that is what makes them dangerous. They are not just defending a ship or a cargo hold. They are defending their families, their homes, their entire way of life." Minister Zedgeth laughed again, though with less confidence than before. "One vessel, no matter how large, cannot threaten the entire Federation. We have thousands of warships. Have any of you considered," Thalen asked, "what happens when an entire community is threatened? When their children are in danger? When their elderly and sick are at risk? How hard will they fight?" The chamber fell silent for a moment. Most Federation species had evolved beyond the primitive emotional responses that Thalen was describing. Their military forces were professional, efficient, and calculating. The idea of civilians actively participating in combat was both horrifying and incomprehensible to them. Admiral Corex broke the silence. "Emotional responses in combat lead to poor decision-making. Panic, desperation, and irrationality are weaknesses that can be exploited by superior tactics and technology. Unless," Thalen said softly, "those emotional responses drive them to do things you never expected. Things that your tactics and technology cannot counter, because they are based on assumptions that no longer apply." Chancellor Vorthog made his decision. "Admiral Corex, dispatch a patrol squadron to intercept this human vessel. Board it, inspect their cargo and technology, and determine their true capabilities. If they resist, disable their ship and bring them to the nearest Federation facility for questioning." "At once, Chancellor," Corex replied, his cybernetic implants flashing as he transmitted orders to the fleet. Thalen watched the proceedings with growing dread. "You are making a terrible mistake. These humans are not like us. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. That," Vorthog said with finality, "is exactly why they will lose." First contact. The patrol squadron consisted of 6 Federation cruisers, each one a masterpiece of military engineering, sleek, deadly, and efficient. They represented the finest naval technology in the galaxy. Captain Vex commanded the lead vessel, the Starfire, from his position on the bridge. His crew of cybernetically enhanced officers moved with mechanical precision, their thoughts linked through quantum communication networks. "Target acquired," reported the tactical officer. "Human vessel is maintaining course and speed. No evasive maneuvers detected." "Open a communication channel," Vex ordered. "This is Captain Vex of the Federation Navy to human vessel Phoenix Dawn. You are ordered to halt and prepare for boarding inspection." The response came in strangely accented galactic standard. "This is Captain Sarah Chan of the Phoenix Dawn. We are peaceful traders and colonists. We have no weapons of mass destruction and pose no threat to Federation space. We request permission to continue our journey." Vex frowned. The human's voice carried an odd quality, as if she was speaking not just for herself, but for others listening. "Captain Chun, this is not a request. You will halt your vessel immediately and comply with boarding procedures." "Captain Vex," came the reply, "we have families aboard this vessel. Elderly citizens, children, pregnant mothers. A forced boarding would put them at risk. Surely we can resolve this through peaceful negotiation." "Families." Vex looked at his tactical officer with confusion. Why would they bring non-combatants into space? "Unknown, sir," the tactical officer replied. "It violates standard military protocol." Vex reopened the channel. "Captain Chun, military vessels do not carry civilian populations. What is your true purpose in Federation space?" There was a long pause before Chun responded. "Captain, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The Phoenix Dawn is not a military vessel. It's a colony ship. We're traveling to establish new settlements on the outer rim worlds. Every person aboard is a volunteer colonist." "Impossible," Vex muttered. "No species would send the most vulnerable citizens on long-range space voyages." His communications officer looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple life signs aboard a human vessel. Thousands of them. The readings are consistent with a mixed population, including juveniles and elderly individuals." Vex felt the first stirring of unease. "All ships, maintain formation. Target the human vessel's engines. Prepare to disable propulsion systems." Captain Chen's voice came over the channel, and now there was an edge to it that hadn't been there before. "Captain Vex, I need you to understand something. This ship carries everything we own, our homes, our families, our future. If you attack us, you're not just attacking a vessel. You're attacking our entire community. Surrender now," Vex replied, "and no harm will come to your civilians." "Our civilians?" Chen's voice carried a note of something that might have been amusement. "Captain, there are no civilians aboard this ship. There are only citizens, and every citizen of the Phoenix Dawn community has sworn to protect our home." Before Vex could respond, the human vessel began to change. What appeared to be a single massive ship started to separate into dozens of smaller units. External modules detached and spread out, each one powered by its own propulsion system. Manufacturing bays became independent vessels. Agricultural sections transformed into mobile platforms. Residential areas reconfigured into defensive positions. What in the void is happening? Vex shouted. His tactical officer's augmented eyes widened with shock. "Sir, the human vessel is breaking apart, but each section is maintaining power and life support. They're not debris. They're independent ships." Within minutes, the Federation Patrol Squadron found themselves facing not one large, cumbersome target, but a swarm of smaller, more agile vessels. Each one moved with purpose, taking positions that suggested careful coordination and planning. "All ships open fire," Vex commanded. "Disable their propulsion systems." The Federation cruisers unleashed their weapons, precise energy beams designed to disable enemy vessels without causing fatal damage. But the human ships didn't behave like military targets. They moved in patterns that defied conventional space combat doctrine, using their smaller size to avoid the powerful but slow-tracking weapons of the larger Federation vessels. And then something unprecedented happened. The human vessels began to fight back. But instead of using conventional weapons, they used themselves. Agricultural modules loaded with harvested crops became kinetic projectiles. Manufacturing sections launched clouds of industrial debris that interfere with Federation sensors. Residential areas deployed emergency shield generators that had been modified to protect other ships in the swarm. "This is madness," Vex breathed. "They're using their own homes as weapons." His tactical officer was frantically trying to target the human vessels, but their erratic movements and unconventional tactics made it nearly impossible. "Sir, our targeting systems are designed for ship-to-ship combat. They can't track this many small, fast-moving targets effectively." And then the human vessels did something even more unexpected. They began to communicate with the Federation ships directly, not through official channels, but through emergency frequencies used for rescue operations. Federation vessels came a voice over the emergency channel. This is Dr. Maria Santos of the Phoenix Dawn Medical Section. We are detecting damaged systems aboard your ships. We are prepared to offer medical assistance to any injured crew members. Engineering Section 2 to Federation ships came another voice. We have repair specialists and spare parts available if you need assistance with your vessels. Educational Section to Federation crews came a third voice. We have xenobiologists and cultural specialists who can help facilitate communication and understanding between our species. Vex stared at his communication panel, in disbelief. They're offering to help us in the middle of battle? Sir, his weapons officer reported, the human vessels have not fired a single shot at us. They've disabled our weapons and engines using impact tactics and electronic warfare, but they haven't attempted to destroy us. Why? Vex asked, why aren't they trying to kill us? The answer came over the emergency channel in Captain Chen's voice. Because, Captain Vex, that's not who we are. We came to space to build new homes, not to destroy old ones. We'll defend ourselves, but we won't commit murder. As the Federation squadron floated helplessly in space, their weapons disabled and their engines offline, Vex began to understand what Ambassador Thalen had been trying to warn them about. These humans weren't just operating different ships. They were an entirely different kind of civilization. To all Federation vessels, Chen continued, our repair teams are standing by to assist with your damaged systems. We'll escort you to the nearest Federation facility and help you explain to your superiors that this was all just a big misunderstanding. Vex looked around his bridge at his cybernetically enhanced crew. They had been trained for efficiency, precision, and overwhelming force. They had never encountered an enemy that fought to protect rather than to destroy, that offered help instead of demanding surrender. Captain Chun, Vex said finally, I think we need to talk. As the human repair teams began docking with the Federation vessels, Vex realized that his report to Admiral Corex was going to be very difficult to write. How do you explain to your superiors that you've been defeated by a species that didn't even try to win? The emergency transmission from Captain Vex reached Admiral Corex's flagship just as the main Federation battle fleet were preparing to depart for the Arcturus system. The transmission was garbled and confused, filled with references to modular vessels and civilian combatants that made no sense to the Admiral's tactical staff. What exactly is Vex trying to tell us? Corex demanded, his cybernetic implants flashing with irritation as he reviewed the transmission logs. Commander Helix, his second-in-command, enhanced the signal and played back the clearest portion. Sir, Captain Vex reports that the human vessel, and I quote, transformed into a swarm of independent ships that used agricultural modules as kinetic weapons and offered medical assistance during active combat. Corex's expression remained impassive, but his implants flickered with increased processing activity. Vex has been in deep space too long. His crew may be experiencing collective hallucinations. Send a medical team to his location immediately. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving multiple confirmations of the report. All 6 ships in the patrol squadron are transmitting similar accounts. Impossible, Corex replied flatly. Ships do not transform. Agricultural modules are not weapons, and no military force offers medical assistance to enemies during active combat. Fleet Captain Morik of the Draconian Imperial Navy leaned forward in his chair. The Draconians had joined the Federation fleet as observers, interested in evaluating these new humans as potential threats to their empire. Admiral, perhaps these reports indicate that the humans are using psychological warfare, confusing our personnel with impossible scenarios to create doubt and hesitation. Corex nodded slowly. A logical explanation. Order the fleet to proceed to Arcturus system. If these humans want to play psychological games, they will learn that the Federation Navy is not easily deceived. The Federation battle fleet was a sight to inspire fear across the galaxy. 120 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with composite metals that could withstand the furious stars. Dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Cruisers designed for speed and firepower, and support vessels carrying the most advanced military technology known to civilization. As they approached the Arcturus system, the fleet's sensors detected something that shouldn't have been possible. Multiple human vessels were already present, and they were arranged in patterns that defied conventional understanding of space warfare. Tactical analysis, Corex ordered. The main display showed the human fleet disposition. Instead of the organized battle lines that any competent military force would adopt, the human vessels were arranged in what appeared to be a civilian formation. Large ships were positioned in the center, surrounded by smaller vessels in protective patterns. It looked more like a refugee convoy than a military force. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "I count 47 human vessels of various sizes. The largest appear to be colony ships, similar to the Phoenix Dawn. The smaller vessels, I can't classify them. They don't match any known military configuration." "Numbers?" Corex asked. "Approximately 200,000 life signs across all vessels." "Sir, the reading suggests a mixed population, including juveniles, elderly, and pregnant females." Commander Helix looked disturbed. "Admiral, they have brought their entire population into a combat zone. This violates every principle of civilized warfare. Unless," Corex said grimly, "they intend to use their civilians as hostages." Fleet Captain Morik activated his communication array. "Human vessels, this is Fleet Captain Morik of the Draconian Imperial Navy. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Any attempt to use civilian populations as shields will be considered a war crime." The response came in multiple voices, speaking in unison but with slight variations in timing that created an eerie echo effect. "This is the Arcturus Colonial Expedition. We are Captain James Harrison of the New Horizons, Captain Lisa Park of the Starward Bound, Captain Ahmed Hassan of the Tomorrow's Dream, and 37 other vessel commanders. We are not using our citizens as shields. We are our citizens." Corex frowned. "Clarify your statement." "Admiral," came the reply, "we are not a military force. We are a community. Every person aboard these vessels is a volunteer colonist. We have farmers, teachers, engineers, doctors, artists, and families. We have children learning to read, and elderly citizens sharing their wisdom. We are not an army. We are a civilization." "Impossible," Corex stated. "Civilizations do not travel through space in their entirety. They maintain homeworlds and send exploratory missions. Our civilization does," the human voices replied. "We have chosen to live among the stars, to make our homes in the void between worlds. These ships are not our transportation. They are our cities, our nations, our entire way of life. The Federation fleet maintained its position, weapons trained on the human vessels. But something was happening to the human formation that made no sense. The ships were beginning to move, not in retreat or aggressive advance, but in a slow, complex dance that seemed to serve no military purpose. What are they doing?" Corex demanded. His tactical officer was studying the readings with growing confusion. "Sir, they appear to be connecting. The ships are physically linking together with extending dock bridges and connection tubes." On the main display, the human fleet was transforming before their eyes. What had been 47 separate vessels was becoming a single massive structure. Ships locked together in a three-dimensional lattice that stretched across several kilometers of space. It was unprecedented, impossible, and completely outside any known military doctrine. "They're making themselves a bigger target," Commander Helix observed. "This makes no tactical sense. Unless," Fleet Captain Morik said quietly, "they're not thinking tactically. They're thinking defensively." As if in response to his words, the human voices came over the communication channel again. "Federation fleet, we want you to understand something. We are not your enemies. We have no desire for conquest or conflict, but we will not abandon our homes, and we will not surrender our freedom." "You have no choice," Corex replied. "You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will treat your civilians with appropriate care." "Our civilians?" The human voices carried a note of what might have been amusement. "Admiral, let me introduce you to our civilians." The connected human vessels began to reconfigure. Sections that had appeared to be residential areas opened to reveal manufacturing facilities that were producing what looked like fighter craft. Agricultural bays release clouds of small, fast-moving objects that sensors couldn't properly classify. Areas that had seemed to be schools and community centers transformed into command and control centers. Sir, the tactical officer reported with growing alarm, the human structure is launching thousands of small craft. They're too small to be fighters, but they're moving in coordinated patterns. Impossible, Korex said. Where did they get a fighter force? They didn't have one. Commander Helix realized. They made one. While we were talking, they were building it. The small craft approaching the Federation fleet were unlike anything in known military databases. They moved with the agility of fighters, but in patterns that suggested coordination beyond anything achievable by individual pilots. Some appeared to be maintenance pods equipped with cutting tools. Others looked like cargo haulers loaded with unknown materials. Still others were clearly improvised vessels created from civilian equipment. All ships, prepare to engage, Korex ordered. But before the Federation fleet could fire, something unprecedented happened. The human craft began to communicate directly with individual Federation vessels, not through military channels, but through civilian emergency frequencies. Federation ship Stellar Conquest. Came a voice over the emergency channel. This is Engineer Maria Gonzalez Flying Maintenance Pod 7. Our sensors indicate you have a critical failure developing in your port engine manifold. We can provide repair assistance. Dreadnought Cosmic Fury. Came another voice. This is Teacher Ellen Wright in Educational Pod 12. We have xenobiological specialists who can help you understand human physiology and culture. We believe this conflict is based on misunderstanding. Cruiser Star Destroyer. Came a third voice. This is Dr. John Kim in Medical Pod 4. We have advanced medical facilities and can provide emergency care for any injured crew members. Korex stared at the communication panel, in disbelief. They're offering to help us in the middle of the battle? Sir, his weapons officer reported, the human craft are not making attack runs. They're taking defensive positions around our fleet. It's as if they're trying to protect us. From what? Korex demanded. The answer came in the form of a new development. The massive human structure was opening like a flower, revealing interior spaces that stretched for kilometers. And from those spaces came something that made even the experienced admiral pause in shock. Gardens. Vast agricultural areas where crops grew under artificial suns. Residential districts where families lived in comfortable homes. Schools where children learned in classrooms with walls that showed views of distant stars. Workshops where artisans created beautiful objects from materials mined from asteroids. Community centers where people gathered to share stories and songs. By the void, Commander Helix whispered. It's not a ship. It's a city. A flying city. No, Korex said, his understanding finally beginning to dawn. It's not a city. It's a civilization. An entire civilization that has chosen to live in space. The human voices came over the communication channel again, but now they were singing. Thousands of voices, adults and children, elderly and young, joining together in a harmony that spoke of shared purpose and mutual care. The song was in a language that the Federation translators couldn't parse, but the emotion was universal. It spoke of home, of family, of the courage to venture into the unknown, while carrying everything precious with them. Admiral, Fleet Captain Morrick said quietly, I believe we made a terrible mistake. What do you mean? Korex asked. We assumed they were like us. We assumed they separated their military from their civilian populations, their homes from their vehicles, their lives from their defense. But they don't. When we threaten their ships, we threaten their homes. When we attack their vessels, we attack their families. When we demand surrender, we demand that they abandon everything they hold dear. Korex studied the massive human structure with new eyes. How do we fight an enemy that doesn't distinguish between combatants and civilians? We don't, Morrick replied, because they're not our enemies. There's something we've never encountered before. People who have chosen to live free among the stars, carrying their entire civilization with them. And they're willing to defend that freedom with everything they have. The human voices came over the channel again, no longer singing, but speaking with quiet dignity. Federation Fleet, we offer you one final chance. Return to your bases and report to your superiors that the humans are not a threat to your territories. We want only to live in peace among the stars. We will not attack your worlds. We will not invade your space. And we will not interfere with your civilizations. And if we refuse, Corex asked, then we will defend ourselves. The human voices replied, not because we want to fight, but because we must protect our homes. Every person in this fleet has children to protect, elderly parents to care for, and a future to preserve. We will not surrender that future to anyone. Corex looked around his bridge at his cybernetically enhanced crew. They had been trained for efficiency, precision, and overwhelming force. They understood military doctrine, tactical advantage, and strategic objectives. But they had never encountered a force that fought not for conquest or glory, but simply for the right to exist. Sir, his communications officer reported, I'm receiving transmissions from the human fleet. They're offering to share their technical specifications, cultural information, and trade agreements. They want to establish peaceful relations. After we threaten to destroy them? Corex asked. Apparently, the officer replied, they believe that understanding leads to peace, and peace is always preferable to war. Corex made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. All ships stand down. Weapons to safe positions. Open a diplomatic channel to the human fleet. Yes, sir, came the response from his crew. As the Federation fleet powered down its weapons and moved to a non-threatening formation, Corex realized that he was going to have to write a report that would revolutionize the Federation's understanding of spacefaring civilization. The humans had shown them something that no military academy taught, that the greatest strength in the galaxy might not be the ability to destroy, but the willingness to protect. A new understanding. The human structure began to reconfigure again, but this time it was opening to welcome the Federation fleet. Docking bays extended invitations, and the human voices came over the communication channels with offers of hospitality, cultural exchange, and friendship. Admiral, Commander Helix said, I believe we're about to learn more about the humans than we ever imagined. Corex nodded. And I believe the galaxy is about to change forever. As the first Federation shuttle docked with the human structure, Corex found himself face-to-face with Captain Sarachun and the other human commanders. They greeted him not with the formality of military protocol, but with the warmth of people welcoming guests into their home. Admiral Corex, Chin said, extending her hand in a human greeting gesture. Welcome to the Arcturus Colonial Expedition. We're glad you decided to talk instead of fight. Corex cautiously accepted the handshake, surprised by the genuine warmth in Chen's expression. Captain Chun, I must confess that I do not understand your people. You fight like no military force I have ever encountered. You defend yourselves but refuse to destroy your enemies. You offer help to those who threaten you. This contradicts everything I know about warfare and civilization. Chun smiled. That's because we're not at war, Admiral. And we're not a traditional civilization either. We're something new, or perhaps something very old that the galaxy has forgotten. We're people who have chosen to carry our homes with us, to live free among the stars, and to protect what we love without destroying what others love. She led him through the interior of the human structure, and Corex found himself walking through streets that shouldn't exist in space. Children played in parks where trees grew under artificial suns. Elderly humans sat on benches, watching the stars through transparent walls. Artists painted murals that told stories of Earth and the journey to the stars. Engineers worked in workshops that produced everything from starship components to children's toys. This is impossible, Corex said, though he was looking at the proof that it wasn't. How do you sustain this? How do you defend this? How do you coordinate thousands of individuals without military hierarchy and cybernetic integration? We coordinate the way humans have always coordinated, Chin replied, through communication, cooperation, and shared purpose. Every person in this fleet volunteered to be here. Every family chose this life. And when we're threatened, we all work together to protect our home. Not because we're ordered to, but because we choose to. They entered what appeared to be a community center, where representatives from different sections of the human fleet had gathered. Corex saw engineers sitting next to teachers, doctors talking with farmers, and children playing while their parents discussed matters of governance and defense. We call it distributed defense. explained Captain James Harrison of the New Horizons. Every section of our fleet can operate independently, but we work together through voluntary cooperation. When you attacked the Phoenix Dawn, every module knew what to do because we practiced these scenarios regularly, not as military drills, but as community exercises, like fire drills or emergency evacuations. But your tactics, Corex protested, the way you used agricultural modules as weapons, the way you disrupted our sensors with industrial debris, these require sophisticated military planning. Or creative problem-solving, interjected Dr. Maria Santos, the physician who had offered medical assistance during the battle. We're not soldiers, Admiral. We're civilians who refuse to be helpless. When someone threatens our homes, we use what we have. Farmers use their crops. Engineers use their tools. Teachers use their knowledge. We don't have military weapons, so we improvise with civilian resources. Corex was beginning to understand something that no amount of military training had prepared him for. You're not weak because you carry your families with you. You're strong because you carry your families with you. Everything you do is to protect them, and that motivation makes you fight harder and smarter than any professional military force. Now you're beginning to see, Chin said with approval, we're not trying to conquer anyone. We're not trying to dominate anyone. We just want to live our lives in peace, raising our children among the stars, building new homes on new worlds. But if someone threatens that, if someone tries to take our freedom or harm our families, we will defend ourselves with everything we have. Fleet Captain Morik, who had accompanied Corex on the diplomatic mission, spoke up. But surely you must see the vulnerability of your approach. What happens when you encounter a force that doesn't care about your families? A force that will simply destroy you without negotiation. The human commanders exchanged glances, and something darker passed across their features. Then, said Captain Ahmed Hassan of the Tomorrow's Dream, his voice cold, they will learn that there's a difference between people who fight because they're ordered to and people who fight because they're defending everything they love. The first will retreat when the cost becomes too high. The second will never stop. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Corex realized that beneath the warmth and hospitality, beneath the offers of friendship and cooperation, the humans possess a core of absolute determination. They would negotiate, they would compromise, they would extend every possible opportunity for peace. But if forced to fight, they would fight with the ferocity of parents protecting their children. We understand now, Corex said slowly. You are not weak. You are not primitive. You are simply different. You have found a way to live in space that no other species has attempted, and you are willing to defend that way of life against all threats. Exactly, Chin replied, her warmth returning. And now that you understand that, perhaps we can move forward as friends rather than adversaries. We have much to offer the Federation: trade, knowledge, cultural exchange. And we ask for very little in return, simply the right to live in peace and the freedom to continue our journey among the stars. Corex made his decision. I will recommend to the Federation Council that your people be granted full trading rights and safe passage through Federation space. I will also recommend that any future interactions with human vessels be conducted with the understanding that these are not military targets, but mobile communities deserving of diplomatic rather than military engagement. The human commander smiled, and the tension in the room dissipated like morning mist. Thank you, Admiral, Chin said. You've made the right choice, not just for us, but for the entire galaxy. Because once other species see what we've accomplished, once they understand that it's possible to carry your civilization with you among the stars, others will follow. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. The report. 3 weeks later, Admiral Corex stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Trade Federation in the Crystal Amphitheater of Nexus Prime. The same representatives who had laughed at Ambassador Thalen's warnings now sat in stunned silence as Corex presented his report. The humans are not a military threat in the conventional sense, Corex explained, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. They are a philosophical revolution. They have rejected the separation of civilian and military, of home and vessel, of life and defense. They carry their entire civilization with them among the stars, and they defend it with the ferocity of parents protecting their children. He activated the holographic display. showing footage of the human structure opening like a flower, revealing the cities and gardens within. We attempted to engage them with military force, assuming they would surrender when faced with superior firepower. Instead, they transformed before our eyes, using civilian resources as improvised weapons, coordinating thousands of independent units through voluntary cooperation rather than military hierarchy. And when they had disabled our weapons and engines, they offered us medical assistance and repair services. The chamber remained silent. Even Minister Zedjith, who had laughed so loudly at the initial warnings, sat with his bulbous form perfectly still. They defeated us, Corex continued, without firing a single shot intended to kill. They neutralized the most advanced battle fleet in the galaxy using farming equipment, industrial debris, and improvised electronic warfare. But more importantly, they showed us something we had forgotten, that the purpose of strength is not to dominate, but to protect. Ambassador Thalen stood slowly, her translucent form shimmering with vindication. I tried to warn you. These humans are not like any species we have encountered. They do not separate their lives into categories the way we do. Their military is their civilian population. Their weapons are their tools of daily life. Their defense is their love for their families. Chancellor Vorthog, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. Admiral Corex, what is your recommendation? Should we treat the humans as a threat to be contained or an opportunity to be embraced? Corex took a deep breath before answering. Chancellor, I recommend that we do neither. I recommend that we learn from them. The humans have discovered something that our advanced civilizations have lost, the ability to live completely, to carry everything that matters with them, to defend what they love without destroying what others love. They represent not a threat, but an evolution in how spacefaring civilizations can exist. You're saying they're superior to us? Fleet Captain Morik asked, his draconian pride evident in his tone. No, Corex replied carefully. I'm saying they're different from us in ways that challenge our assumptions. Our civilizations evolved to create separation, military from civilian, work from home, defense from daily life. The humans rejected those separations. They created something new, something that makes them simultaneously more vulnerable and more resilient than anything we've built. Trade Commissioner Helix activated her platform. Admiral, you mentioned that the humans offered trade and cultural exchange. What exactly can they offer the Federation? What resources or technologies do they possess that we need? That's the wrong question, Corex said. What they offer is not resources or technology, it's perspective. They can show us how to think differently about space habitation, about community defense, about the integration of civilian and military capabilities. Their modular ship design alone could revolutionize how we construct space stations and colonies. Their distributed defense systems could provide insights into protecting civilian populations during conflicts. And their social structures, communities that voluntarily coordinate without rigid hierarchy, could teach us new approaches to governance. Senator Quillax's insectoid features clicked with skepticism. This all sounds very philosophical, Admiral, but philosophy doesn't win wars or protect borders. If we adopt human methods, won't we make ourselves vulnerable to more aggressive species? Perhaps, Corex acknowledged, but the humans have survived for generations using these methods. They've crossed vast distances of space, established multiple colonies, and defended themselves against threats we're only beginning to understand. Their approach works, Senator. It works because it's based on something stronger than weapons or technology. It's based on the willingness of entire communities to defend their way of life. Chancellor Vorthog stood, his ceremonial robes rustling. The Council will deliberate on Admiral Corex's recommendations. In the meantime, I propose we extend temporary trading rights and safe passage to human vessels, with a condition that they share detailed information about their social structures and defensive capabilities. Are there any objections? The chamber remained silent. Even those who had initially dismissed the humans as primitive scavengers now understood that they were dealing with something unprecedented. Then it is decided, Vorthog declared, the humans will be granted provisional status within Federation space. Ambassador Thalen, you will serve as our primary liaison with human communities. Admiral Corex, You will work with human leaders to develop protocols for future interactions between Federation forces and human vessels. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Ambassador Thalen approached Corex. "Thank you, Admiral," she said quietly. "You had the courage to admit you were wrong and the wisdom to learn from the experience. Not many military commanders possess both qualities." Corex nodded. "I underestimated them because they were different. I assumed that our way of organizing civilization was the only efficient way. The humans showed me that efficiency isn't everything. Sometimes resilience, adaptability, and determination matter more." "What will you do now?" Thalen asked. "I'm going to accept Captain Chen's invitation to spend time aboard the Arcturus Colonial Expedition," Corex replied. "I need to understand how they coordinate thousands of individuals without cybernetic integration. I need to see how they make decisions without military hierarchy. And I need to learn how they maintain morale and unity when every person is both a civilian and a defender." Thalen smiled. "You're going to live among them?" "For several months. Yes. The Federation Council has approved it as part of the Cultural Exchange Program. I'll be studying their methods, learning their philosophy, and hopefully bringing back insights that can help our own civilizations evolve." "That's a brave decision, Admiral. Most military commanders would see it as beneath their dignity." Corex looked out through the transparent dome at the stars beyond. "The humans taught me something important, Ambassador. They taught me that strength isn't about maintaining dignity or projecting power. It's about being willing to adapt, to learn, and to change when confronted with something new. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders we haven't imagined. If we're going to thrive in it, we need to be more like the humans. Willing to carry our homes with us, willing to defend what we love, and willing to extend friendship even to those who initially threatened us." Epilogue. Among the Stars. 6 months later, Admiral Corex stood in an observation lounge aboard the human structure, watching children play in a park, while stars wheeled slowly overhead. He had spent half a year living among the humans, learning their ways and understanding their philosophy. What he had discovered had changed him in ways he was still processing. The humans didn't just live in space. They thrived in it. They had created genuine communities among the stars, places where families flourished and children grew up knowing no other home but the void between worlds. They had art, music, literature, and culture that was uniquely spacefaring, shaped by the experience of carrying everything precious with them wherever they went. Captain Sarachin joined him at the viewport, carrying 2 cups of what the humans called coffee. "What are you thinking about, Admiral?" she asked, handing him one of the cups. Corex took a sip, having grown to appreciate the bitter beverage over the past months. "I'm thinking about how much the galaxy is going to change because of your people. Other species are already watching what you've done. Some are talking about creating their own mobile civilizations. Others are redesigning their space stations to be more modular and adaptable. You started a revolution without firing a shot." Chin smiled. "That was always the hope. We didn't come to space to conquer it. We came to live in it. And once others see that it's possible, that you don't have to separate your life from your journey, more will follow." "And the Federation?" Corex asked. "The Federation is learning," Chin replied. "Slowly, but learning. They're beginning to understand that there's more than one way to be strong, more than one way to survive among the stars. And that's all we ever wanted, the freedom to live our way, and the respect to let others live theirs." Corex watched a young human child point excitedly at a distant nebula, her parents explaining the stellar phenomena with evident joy. He realized that this was what the humans had truly mastered, not military tactics or technological innovation, but the art of carrying home in their hearts wherever they went. "Thank you, Captain," he said quietly, "for teaching me that sometimes the strongest defense is simply refusing to become what you're fighting against." Chin raised her cup in a toast. "To the future, Admiral. To a galaxy where civilizations can choose their own path among the stars." They touched cups, human and alien, standing together in a structure that was part ship, part city, and entirely home. Outside, the galaxy turned in its ancient dance, and somewhere in the darkness, more human vessels carried their precious cargo of families and dreams toward distant horizons. The revolution had begun, and the stars would never be the same.